Andrew Lynch, thank you so much for being a guest on Navigating New York.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. And I think just to sort of give our listeners a little bit of context as to how we know each other. We both work out of the Bank of Ireland hub in the city, in Manhattan. And I've only been in there for a few months, but I think you've been there for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been there about 18 months, yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, I've really enjoyed, I mean, I knew you before then because the Irish community, I mean, I knew your name and I think we might have come across each other. But when I started to get to know you in just passing by in the kitchen, I was just so, I don't know, sort of impressed by your energy and like you're like, yeah. And like, you know, I think sometimes, I suppose I'd been used to working remotely for quite a while, like having that energy in a shared workspace was really great. And I think what really comes across in the way you go about work is that you just have this great energy and you're honest about it. So I think it would be great for our listeners to learn a little bit about what you do. But before that, I might get you just to kind of introduce yourself and what brought you to New York.
Yeah, definitely. Just on that, you know, the Bank of Ireland hub that we work out of, yeah, it's actually great and I love it there. And Bank of Ireland, Tony Dunn in particular, have just been so good to me and so many others. Yeah. You know, it's a tough place to come to New York and set up a business. But what I actually like most about it, apart from being a fantastic space, is, you know, there's a number of us there and, you know, there's just an understanding and everyone's trying their best and finding it hard and there's good days and bad days. And you just, you know, you don't need to really say too much, but it's a support network and everyone's just helping each other out. And even if it's like, how's your day going? It means a lot. So I love it in there and hopefully you can share some positivity when I'm feeling it. So.
Well, like,
it's not always.
I know, but that again, that's exactly why I'm so intrigued, I guess, by you, and I've been delighted to be able to become friends with you through the hub, and like that, I just think it's great that, you know, you never know sort of what startup you're going to meet or who's over from Ireland, and there's that nice kind of energy. And Tony is the best. You know, there's such a great support to people starting out here, and I'm obviously in there with Bardstown, so sometimes, you know, we'll have events and it's just a nice place to kind of feel like you're part of the community and also get a lot of support.
Yeah, even on Bardstown, it's just an interesting story. And you're right, you meet, like in there, you just meet so many people and different organizations. And it was a real nice moment for me. In December, I was home back in Dublin for a few days, end of November, early December. And I'd caught up with a friend of mine and his daughter, she's 2.5. She's been very sick and in Crumlin, but they've been using Bardstown. And he was telling me just how great it's been for them. And I flew back in on the Sunday or the Monday, and on the Tuesday morning
Dee and Tim
were there, and I saw them and I was like, oh hey, and you know, rushing by them, and I just stopped and I turned to them and said, hey, I was actually with my friend over the weekend, and he was saying, you know, what a amazing job you do and the impact it's had on his family. And so I was like, thanks. And, you know, it's just, for me, it felt great to be able to do that, you know, and that's amazing. Just in New York, you know, so it's just funny. It's like a small little melting pot of all these different people all, you know, doing great things.
Amazing. That's such a great story. And funny that you said, like, I was going to ask you that actually, because I know, you know, you've lived in Ireland for most of your life, but is Dublin where you'd call home?
I suppose so. I was born in England. My accent's obviously a bit of a giveaway. I haven't been able to shake it. I moved to Ireland when I was 8. My dad's Irish, and moved to Ireland when I was 8 from Kildare, actually. So my parents still live in Kildare. Went to boarding school, and then at 18, I moved up to Dublin and spent the rest of my life up until about 18 months ago in Dublin. So I know Kildare's home. Yeah. I think it's probably more here when people say, where are you from? It's just, Dublin's easier. If you say Kildare, it's like, where is it? Oh, it's like New Jersey to... I just say, so it's Dublin, easier. But Kildare is home, Yeah.
And so you moved to New York 18 months ago, but you had an interesting, career, I guess, in Ireland. I know you've kind of shared some tidbits with me over your years of kind of experience, but can you talk to us about like when you finished school, what were your steps after that?
Yeah, so I was in boarding school, and I made a decision quite early on that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad was one, and I think there was a number of reasons. I didn't particularly get on great in class. I was definitely smart and good at some subjects, and some terrible at maths, just awful. But I didn't apply myself, and I think there was, and so I think by not applying myself, I was also a bit like, I'm kind of giving up on this academic thing, but I also wanted to be an entrepreneur, and just really immaturely, when I was in sixth year, what's the form? Is it the CAO?
Yeah.
Is it CAO?
I'm not sure in the South, actually.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. The thing you fill out for university or college, and I think I put one thing on, and it was history and politics in Trinity, and it was 580 points or something. And I came well short of that, knowing right well that I would. So I didn't have a choice. I couldn't go to college. So that was the decision made. And I suppose spent a few years not like into the wilderness of trying a few different things myself, working a few jobs that I hated, and struggling to find my way. And, it was fine when you're 18, 19, 20 and all your friends are in college and we're just having a good time, and that's all that matters. But, then people start getting jobs, and, and it gets a bit serious, and you shouldn't ever, but you're always comparing yourself to your friends and, your contemporaries. And so, I think maybe around 23, 24, I was really trying to get a bit more serious about what I wanted to do, and be an entrepreneur. I said I had tried a couple of different things, selling ponchos. I think I've talked about this on social media, failed miserably. I set up a women's fashion show, selling secondhand clothes, and it also didn't work, and just different things. And ended up then eventually starting Mesa Alexander when I was 26. So and thankfully still doing that 11 years on.
Amazing.
It's also kind of high level how that started. But.
Yeah. Well, wow. I think it's really interesting to hear you were taking a kind of alternative route from the get-go. Like you knew that you didn't want to go to college, and you kind of stood to that and pushed all these ideas that you had. And yes, some of them failed, but some of them have obviously, like Mason Alexander, have been successful. And I think it's just great and kind of refreshing to hear that, because I think now, the generation coming through college now, and I even see it now with the graduates coming to New York, they have such a fire in their belly and such confidence in what they want to achieve. And I think now, because of social media, owning your own business or coming up with a really good idea seems way more accessible than it would have, I'm imagining, when you were 20. So having that instinct and then following through it's impressive to hear it, I guess, and to not have kind of taken the other route and just gone. Like, I went to university and I scraped into a course that, I could have done better. I could have done better in my A-levels, which is like the Leaving Cert. But I still appreciate that I went to university, because it matured me at a time when, the first few years didn't mature me at all. But it feels like you got a lot of life experience then in those kind of formative years. Would you say that?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. And I think, you obviously going into the working world is hard. I haven't really thought about this a huge amount, but I think when I was in school, because I didn't, maximize my potential.
Yeah, same.
And that's across academia and sport and everything. I was just never really applying myself. I think at a certain point, I wanted to, redeem that and put that right.
Yeah.
And you need to go through a few harsh lessons to realize that, and thankfully I did. And I have an example where I went for a job interview when I was, I don't know, maybe 21, 22, and I was in the interview, and the guy said, I don't see you. 5 minutes in, he's my CV, and he's like, I don't see your I don't see your degree here. And I said, I didn't go to college. And he was like, well, the interview's over. We only hire college grads. And I said, fine, just, no problem. And as I was walking out the room, it's like here, he stopped me and said, like, just so you know, that's going to haunt you for the rest of your career. And I was just like, wow, I walked out and I wasn't annoyed or anything. I was just like, what a weird thing to say to someone, do you know? And I think, it's moments like that. I was also working in a company, in a sales role, and just low-level sales role. And I remember these, there were college kids came into this huge room, lots of people on the phones, and these college kids came in, and I said to the guy beside me, who's that? And he's like, oh, they're these college work placement kids. They'll be our bosses one day. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, they're not going to be my boss. But not even, like, and I think it was just like this stigma of, trying to right the wrongs, but also, back in school, I just, the way we were taught and the way we learned, it wasn't for me. And I wanted to, like, everyone's different. Everyone learns differently. Everyone goes about things differently. Everyone has different ambitions and interests. Yeah. And I just wanted to explore what mine were and not feel pressured to go to college, go do a certain career. Yeah. And I don't know, I've always felt quite creative. And so, I think I was just okay with it all, and some of those things that happened, post school then led me to giving me the confidence to say, do you know what? It's okay to take a different path. Yeah. And if you do that and it works out, then you're gonna have the ability to, hire people and work with people that, can be anything and can be from anywhere, and try and find and spot what their talents are. And I don't know, that just really excited me, and that just led me into it. People start companies for so many different reasons, and now, as you said, it seems to be easier than ever, which is great. But I think for me it was a big pull of, wow, if I feel I could really, when I get people around me, I could get really smart and talented people around me, and I always just believed I could get them aligned on a vision and get them excited and motivated, and that really drove me. That was probably one of the biggest, pull factors to start a company. But saying all of that, I had no clue what I was doing. I really didn't, and I was all bravado about it. But when it came to the first day, and I remember it well, I was terrified. Terrified, and didn't know what I was doing. I was 26. I looked about 16.
You still do.
Yeah, I don't know. And
so jealous.
I don't know about that. I don't feel it. Well, sometimes I do. It's sometimes New York. You have the energy is it's full on. But I was nervous as hell, and I didn't know what I was doing, and people were. Yeah, it was just I felt the imposter syndrome. I even early on meet people, and I'm like, they're not taking me seriously, so it was hard, but it's also, you kind of forget those things pretty quickly. But it was also really exciting. Like, it was so exciting. It was so exciting, and it definitely kind of led me on this journey that I still have today of, wow, anything could be possible now. I could achieve anything. It's now in my hands. And I don't know, just that really just gave me a huge amount of inspiration to see where that could go and push that.
Amazing. Andrew, that was such an honest answer. It was just so, thank you so much for such a great answer. Like, I think you're quite unaware of it, and it's what makes it even more like endearing about you, is like the sort of pearls of wisdom that you just come out with, because of your experience, because of your honest hard work and experience. Or I think that's what's drawn me to want to have this conversation with you, because over the time we've got to know each other, you know, it's been a formative or transformative time, I guess, for me, as well as my husband, who started his own general contracting company. I mean, I set up my my LLC about just less than 3 years ago, but it's really only been in the last kind of year that I've really pushed forward with my services. And you know, sometimes I think the term entrepreneur can be quite this glamorous title that it feels a little bit, when you're actually running your own business, or you're working for yourself, or you're engaging with other people and you're trying to grow or develop, it feels so, you feel like an imposter. You feel, you know, like, I should be doing this, or this should feel like this. But just even in your answer there, you've shown like that, although, you know, it might seem like starting a business is this like very exciting project, which it is, and it's a whole life change, there comes with it so much challenge, you know, and about yourself as a person right down to your core. And I think, you know, that answer in itself is going to be so helpful to people at that stage right now, even though you were in your early 20s then. And, you know, I think as well, you're always, when we're chatting, you're always sort of open about those thoughts and those kind of emotions and feelings that you kind of have to just deal with throughout. You know, like you've been an entrepreneur now for what, like over 15 years, and you still wake up some days feeling like, what am I doing? You know, and I think it's important to hear that. That's what I think I really respect, having that kind of, instead of, I mean, we all have to sell ourselves, right? We all have, like, we have LinkedIn, and we have, you know, we have to, if we want to kind of continue to expand, and get more customers or whatever it is we're selling. But I think having kind of hearing, you know, the honest side of starting your own business is really important to inform you in your own decision making if you are looking to become an entrepreneur or change, you know, your current job, or change or start something up on the side. So that's super helpful. And can you tell us then a little bit about the journey of Mason Alexander? How come you've now come to the US, and, you know, when did that decision come? And were you kind of always based just in Ireland, or did you start to kind of bring it more internationally throughout the growth?
Yeah, sure. So we were, as I said, we founded in Dublin in 2013, and I said to you in my previous comments that you know, I wasn't really sure what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, I was starting a recruitment business. I knew from selling ponchos and other things, I knew I didn't want to sell a product.
Okay.
I wanted, I liked the, just, you know, dealing with people, and the, I suppose the variety that comes with that.
Yeah.
But one thing I did know, I really believed and had conviction on, was that anyone that dealt with me would have an amazing experience. Yeah. Like, it was just the one thing it was an unwritten rule in my head.
Yeah.
And from day one, every single time I interacted with someone, even if I couldn't help them, I was like, I'm going to give them something that they're going to be able to use.
Wow.
And I was like, if I just keep doing that, you know, every day, as many times as I can every day, that could, you know, lead to something. And that's all I did. That's all I focused on. And, you know, still to this day, that's still our MO, is delivering, you know, great experiences to people, to our customers. And we have two. We have obviously companies, and then we have, we call them candidates, but, you know, people who are seeking jobs, or we're seeking for them to do a particular job. And yeah, that mission has not changed, which feels great, by the way. And you know, I think we're 11 years on. We were started in Dublin. We're very much a Dublin firm. We've thankfully we're across Ireland now, and the pandemic had a lot to do with that.
Really?
Yeah. the plan was to come to the US actually in April 2020. I was actually here in March. I was actually in Washington, and the president at the time, Donald Trump, announced a travel ban, and so everyone's like, oh, get out of here. So left.
Yeah.
So we didn't, but it was always my ambition to come to the US. Ireland's a big FDI hub, so we worked with a number of US companies. So there was felt like there was a bit of a pull factor. But I don't know, I was always excited by the bright lights.
Yeah.
As I said, that, anything's possible. I've always wanted that, felt like that. And, we're better than America, and certainly New York. And I think as well, for me, it's, the most important people for me are, obviously our customers, but it's the people that work in Mason Alexander. And I always want to, encourage them, motivate them, make them feel like anything's possible, make them feel like they can achieve anything. And, I think as a leader, it's important to take the lead on that and put yourself out there. And so I've always, that's really what brought me here. And again, came here, like 11 years ago, starting it without, too much of a plan, and just come over and try and figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the right strategy, but, I think you need to, I know I've never been someone who's been too prescriptive on things.
Yeah.
When I know exactly what I want, what we want, and what the focus is, I am, and we are. But I think it's good to have a level of, let's just tease it out and see what happens. Because you're never going to get it right. That's obvious. You're never going to get it right, and all the time. And I think but look, New York just presents, huge amount of opportunity, but huge amount of challenge. And I don't know, I sometimes feel like I'm not the best person to talk to about it, because it depends on what day you catch me.
Yeah.
Genuinely, it could be. And people reach out and on LinkedIn, and they come into town, and I meet them for a coffee, and people are so good to me when I came here. Obviously, there's a great community, Irish community. So I am always positive, and they come with all this enthusiasm, and but what I can do is just share my experiences. Like I can share over the last 11 years. I can just share things that I've learned, things that I've done well, things that I haven't done so well, and I think they can be useful to people. I probably starting out I didn't have as I could have certainly had more advice or more mentorship, and that was my fault for not going after it. But again, it's all just part of the journey. And I think New York is a place you got to be really careful. You've got to have this balance of you're coming here and you're shooting for the stars. You're just anything is you're going to go big, big dreams, big aspirations, and you're going to work 24/7 to make it happen. But you've also got to temper that a little bit with. I've also got to take this, step by step, and be really focused, because you can be dragged in so many different directions. And one of my things that I've done badly over the years is be distracted, be excited by the bright, shiny thing over here. Business isn't complicated. It shouldn't be. I believe most people don't know what they're doing. In business, I think, people are winging it from all walks of, no one has all the answers. So I think just keeping it simple, which sounds boring, and I'm all about the excitement and the energy and the adrenaline. So I have to have this huge level of, we're going to take over America. Like I have to feel like that. Like, but then you need to try and temper that a bit with, Mason Alexander is a really great recruitment business that has delivered, thousands of times over for our customers. we will continue to do that and continue to grow it. And our ambition, is to be a great company.
Yeah.
Built over many, many years. And I think that people that work for you and the people that work, your customers that work with you, gives them that gives them a they buy into that.
Yeah.
And even coming to New York, I say to people, it's not, I'm here 18 months, still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight, and you got to think long term, and that's what I think. I get also, for some reason, it's a real question here. Maybe it's the Irish community, but it's, how long are you going to be here for?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe forever.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe forever. But I'm not here for. I didn't come here for a year. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I'm always trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
With a huge, dollop of like ambition and excitement, and then trying to level that out a little bit, and do the right thing, the basic things time and time again, and trying to be calm. I think that's the biggest challenge with being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is a really overused word, I think. I sometimes think people put entrepreneurship on a pedestal, and I don't think it should, because I think every job is hard. I think no matter what you're doing, like what you're doing, I have so much admiration for you, and you're doing so many, so many different things going on, and it's like, it's hard, if you're working in a bar, it's hard. If you're driving a taxi, it's hard. If you don't have a job, it's hard. Like everything is really hard. So I don't think entrepreneurship is oh my God, these poor people. Far from it. And it's definitely not as glamorous as you think. But I think what I suppose the biggest, for me anyway, I think one of the hardest things about it is you're constantly in this just 100 million miles an hour. Your mind is racing, and it's really hard to turn that off. And the highs are incredibly high, the lows are incredibly low, and trying to get that balance is hard, and difficult. But that's the key to it. That is the key to it. If you can nail that, it becomes. I think it becomes a lot easier. And I've had to do a lot of work on that, particularly over the last couple of years. It just internally myself, talking to friends. I was a few months ago, I was chatting to a friend of mine here in New York. He's actually an Irish guy. And we're very different actually. And I really like having people around me who are different. Different perspective on things. Very different. He's a really smart guy. He's a VP of finance in a very cool tech company, and very bright, very mathematical. We're chatting one day, and I'm talking about my crazy life in New York, and he's but he was saying to me, he was like, just watch, just look at Jeff Bezos. If you hear him talk, he just says, I make 2 to 3 decisions a day, and that's I focus on what's the most important thing. And I never really watched much of him. I didn't before that, but I did subsequently. And you might think it's a bad analogy because he's the whatever the wealthiest people in the world, but he should be the most stressed, highly erratic person ever, and he's not. He's actually, when you see him, and I don't know him personally, but he seems the calmest. I think that's the trick, but it's so hard because
to
again you need to have this excitement and passion, and so it's but it's all part of that journey, and I think as well, if you're if you're going on it as a wherever you're doing it, but being an entrepreneur, you do need to be prepared that it's a lonely road, and you need to be prepared to just take the flack, and especially when you start employing people, it's always typically your fault, and you just gotta the buck stops with you, and so it should. So it's just a lot of things to think through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think anyone who is starting a company, I don't think you should think about all these things. You should just do it.
Do it, yeah.
But I think it takes a certain personality.
Yeah.
I talk to most of my close friends on entrepreneurs, and I chat to them, and I think it's, they've all, in their careers, they're all doing different things, and they've all done incredibly well, and they've had to work hard and through all these challenges. But it's a different way of life, different way of being. It's nearly a consumes your.
It consumes you, and I think
it's a vocation.
It doesn't. I think that's a big difference from working, maybe full time somewhere, which, as you've said, is hard. Like, no matter what your job is, it's hard, for the vast majority of us. But one of the nice kind of things, or one of the advantages about not being self-employed, is that usually when 5 o'clock hits, or whatever it might be, when your shift finishes or your day is ended, you're able to kind of close the book on it and live your life. But then I think what I'm getting from what you're saying, and from my own lived experience now as well, is like everything. It all kind of comes in one, like your life and your work when you're an entrepreneur, or you're self-owned, or whatever it might be, it's all one. And it's about it. I think the trick is trying your best in order to like stay as like recharged and have that energy that's so important to perform, and to lead your team, and to sell your product, and to talk to clients. It is important to try to have a bit of balance. And I've mentioned this book to you, and I think I've said it on another episode that was recommended to me by Jack McGarry, who was on the podcast before, and it's called Essentialism. And it's all about that. It's all about like the most successful people in the world, like who nowadays, like Jeff Bezos, they have mastered the art of essentialism, which is basically, only doing what is essential for your growth, right? Only doing it. So it's saying no to so many other things. And you mentioned earlier about the shiny thing in the corner, and I, for instance, today I was all frantic, and I had like a list I wrote this morning that had like 12 or 13 things on it. And instead of going through it in an order, I just sort of threw myself at it and had 4 different windows open on my laptop, and was doing texting one person here and then writing another list here. And I was like, I am absolutely not practicing this essentialism at all, because I'm doing everything frantically. I'm not prioritizing what's important, and I'm not being realistic about what I can achieve in these next few hours. I'm just going to throw myself at it. So I think no matter how much we kind of read these things, or we watch, these speeches, it's hard to put it into practice. But I think a degree of self-awareness is the best you can ask for of yourself, at least. I feel like your self-awareness has really shone through in this conversation, because you equally know the things you should do, and you know how you don't do them.
Exactly.
At times,
no, it's like I know what not to do, but I just do it anyway. And it's all. I think it's just, what are you doing it for? And I actually I read something recently. There was a guy left KKR, the investment firm. I don't know when, and I actually don't know the company that he started, but he left and set up a tech company, and it's gone on to do very well.
Yeah.
And he was being interviewed, and they asked him when he was leaving KKR. He spoke to one of the founders, a guy called Henry Kravis, and I don't know. I think Henry Kravis is probably in his 80s now, but he said Henry Kravis said something to him that really struck a chord, and this was a young guy, and Henry Kravis said, "Well, I'm so envious the chance to just do it all again.
Yeah.
I'd give everything."
Wow.
And I was like, just hearing those things just reminds you, even if it's for for a moment that, whatever you're doing, you should try and enjoy it and embrace it, and just
be proud of it.
Let the journey, just be exciting, and as I said, see where it goes. It doesn't have to be overly prescriptive. And I think that's the other thing for me. We all do, but again, as an entrepreneur, you think a lot about the mistakes you've made, because you don't want to make them again, and not regrets, just mistakes. And but it's also it's very hard to remember them sometimes, because you're moving so quickly, and because you're so, I think the more you can sit down and think about these things and remember them, the better. But again, I'm not preaching here, because I don't, most of them don't do that. But I am. I think it's funny. 11 years on, I'm enjoying the journey more than I've ever done. Which is, and that doesn't make, I said I came in here. Well, I've had such a crazy day, and good and bad. But I think, for me, I'm living something that I've wanted to live. I feel incredibly blessed to be here. I feel incredibly lucky to have such talented colleagues. I feel so much love from my family. I've got such a close knit group of friends who, and for me, that's kind of all that's what's important to me. And to get a chance, as I said at the start, to just keep, aiming for the stars, aiming for something big. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here. I feel like what I've been, put on earth to do, is to just, go for it without any, sometimes without rhyme or reason. And I've always been this, I've always had this mentality of, you hear a lot in business, like, why would you do that? Why would this and why? And I think, why not? Why not?
Why not?
And that's kind of my, how I make decisions. And again, it's probably not the best way, but
so
it leads you to...
No, it does. And it's so refreshing to hear it. I think it's really important to hear it. And it's interesting, I've been having more conversations recently with more people about this. And I guess, like the way we're always, especially in New York, you're like, okay, here, like, what's your goal? Like, people always be like, what's your dream? Like, what do you want to get to? Like, what's 5 years? What's this? And I've started to care less about what that looks like, and I was really traveling last year with my husband. We were gone for like maybe 6 months of the year, which was, in ways a wild thing to do. And, we've come back to New York, and, you have to get back into it. And, there's all these excuses you could say about not doing it, but we were like, we're just going to do it. And it was the best thing we could have done, because we got time to have perspective. And honestly, New York is a place where it's hard to find the time to give yourself, to gain perspective, to actually zoom out and be like, okay, what is the plan? Or, why I felt like for a few years here, especially, I was just kind of on this train, and I was just doing all the things that I thought I had to do. And actually I was like, at a point I had to just step off it and be like, where am I going? Like, what's happening here? So, it's not to say I'm always conscious of that now every day, but I think being a bit more intentional about the day to day and like the journey, and like not just thinking like in 5 years I want to have made this amount of money and I want to have this. It's important, yes, to have goals without a doubt, but to sacrifice. I think this is the conversation I've been having more with people, and I'm learning over the last year, is like to not sacrifice like happiness day to day, or general quality of life, to try to achieve something that, you may not get anyway. Like, so if you're in a position, no matter if you're an entrepreneur or you're, working full time, or you're still figuring out what it is you want to do, as long as you're like, moving generally in a direction that, excites you. I think that's so important. And I think you've really embraced that since you've got to New York. And that's what I can really feel from you anytime we have a conversation.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think one of the biggest challenges that people face, and one of the biggest challenges that affects people, is they care too much about perception and what people think.
100%.
And what the points you just made there are absolutely spot on. And it could be in New York, it could be in anywhere, Ireland. Just be in your own head. You're racing 100 miles an hour. Getting perspective is like one of the best things you can do. And like I've been so guilty about caring what people think, making decisions because I think it will look good, and people will be impressed. And the reality is, no one knows what it's like for me to, live my life, what I think about, what my fears are, what my doubts are, what makes me happy. Like no one knows. No one knows what it's been like to, start a recruitment company 11 years ago. And, no one knows that. And I don't know what it's been like for you. I mean, we can all share things, but no one does. And no one, it'd always be hard to understand. I think it's definitely in the past couple of years in particular, and I think New York's actually been really good for that. I think New York's great for so many things, but I think it's an environment where you can't really care what people think. You just got to go for it because no one actually does really care because you're a nobody here, which is humbling actually. But I think you should only do things that you're doing for you and no one else. And I think when you can get to that point, and you understand that, then you can do your best work, and then you can really get into things that you enjoy. And people are always gonna, people will always, think things, but I don't, who cares?
Who cares?
And it's actually funnily enough for me, I even doing that, and I constantly am just a work in progress and trying to be a better person and better internally, externally. I think I've definitely got a lot better of just casting doubt too quick. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know. I think you should just do things because it's what you want to do and it's what you believe in. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, says, or does. It's your life, it's your career, and you just gotta live it the way you want to and do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah, Andrew, wow, thank you so much. I think we're going to finish up soon, sadly, but I did want to finish with a couple of questions, actually just really one question that I feel could be relevant to some of our listeners, especially with you who, you've such a deep experience in recruitment. And you and I chat about this in the Bank of Ireland hub sometimes, like there seems to be such an influx of J1 graduates over in New York, and we're so delighted to have them, and we're really all like trying to connect them and get them in front of the right person to get that job. There's actually a great event coming up on the 22nd of February that's going to be like a kind of recruitment that we'll have employers, we'll have J1s there, we'll have previous J1s like myself sort of talking, and we're going to hopefully do a bit more coaching, because like I remember when I moved here 10 years ago as a J1, I had absolutely no, and it doesn't really even apply just to J1s, but people who are coming to New York and aren't used to the job market here, aren't used to how to, impress in an interview, or, what way it might be different from Ireland. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of like even just generally what you've noticed in terms of that market here?
Yeah. I know, and you're doing great work for the J1s. I think it's from my, I've obviously spoke to some of them and they reach out.
No, you
and
do great work too. Everyone tries.
I haven't really, but I've obviously there's hundreds of them come over every year. My just one piece, or my maybe reflection, or I don't know if it's advice, but maybe how I would go about it.
Yeah.
Right? I think people come in. There's a well-trodden path. You come over. You meet some of the Irish community. You send your CV around. I know I'm always in anything in life. If everyone's doing one thing, just try and do something a bit different.
Yeah, love that.
Try and just all the herd is going this way.
Yeah.
If you take a different direction, a different path, it might be tougher and it might be unknown, and you might be walking into the wilderness a bit.
Yeah.
But at least you'll stand out.
Yeah.
And I'm only just thinking about this now, so I don't have a playbook on this, but I think like the Irish community is great, but if you've got hundreds of people coming in, talking to the same people, asking the same requests, sending CVs to the same people, I think that becomes very competitive.
It does.
And I think you should look for uncompetitive. And I think America, and particularly New York again, generally thinks so fondly of Irish people, so welcoming to Irish people. I think they, outside of all the paddy wackiness, which I really hate, but they really believe Irish people are driven and hardworking and successful. And I've met so many people that said stories. I work with this person, and they're so talented. And I think America's just very welcoming to that. And you can. One of the things I love about here is you literally can meet anybody. Yeah. Like genuinely, I was in the White House last year. Yeah. With the president for 30 minutes hanging out. It's just like, that's bizarre. Bizarre. I've met. There's other people I'm not going to drop any names, but I've just met some really incredible people, well known on a global stage, and that's nothing. It's just it just comes from being here, being out there, backing yourself, believing in yourself, and being yourself. Yeah. And if you just do that and just keep, as I said, every single day out there, meet people, talking to people, things will happen. You got to be patient. You got to be persistent, and to the J1s, get into the Irish network and do all those good things, but look outside it as well, and see what else is out there. Yeah. You don't know where it might take you.
Yeah, that's solid advice. I love that. And so we'll wrap it up with a few questions that I'm bringing into the series and my new video series, which is all about highlighting Irish businesses and brands and people in New York. And I know you've 18 months feels like a long time, but I know in New York that feels like the click of fingers. It's so quick. But have you established any kind of favorite places or favorite Irish places in New York, or any places that you feel particularly you might go to, or somewhere you might go for food or go for a pint when you are feeling a wee bit homesick? Or you just want to kind of connect with, maybe you don't have, I think here in New York, locals don't really exist. People don't really have a local because it's so big and there's so many places. Is there anywhere, you're living in Williamsburg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your usual, do you go out in Williamsburg or come into the city?
Yeah, I go out in Williamsburg. I go out in the city quite a bit. Obviously work in Midtown. I like downtown a lot. Soho, the West Village, the Lower East Side. I don't really, I suppose I don't really have an Irish spot. There is always the talk of what's the best Guinness. I think Grace's on 14th
Street. I
think they do a good pint and it's a good bar. I'm not really homesick, to be honest.
Yes,
so
I love that.
I don't really miss anything. I mean, friends and family, but I don't really miss anything. So, I got a few. I've got a few. I love Italian food. I love American cuisine. There's some great restaurants I love pizzas, burgers, everything.
Yeah.
I think my favorite, just as a general bar, I love Finelli Cafe in Soho. It's it's not a dive bar. It's just I don't know, old school.
Yeah.
Pub. It's got a great backstory. I probably don't have time to tell you, but I've met the owner there. We works in there, and it's come down the generation. It's a great backstory.
Yeah.
So I love it there. And yeah, just there's loads of good Italians around. My favorite restaurant I've been to, and I've only been a couple of times, is Four Charles Prime Rib in the West Village. Amazing.
Yeah.
And there's a few others. Brooklyn's great for food. I think if you're coming to New York for a few days, everyone's always going to be in the city in Manhattan. But if you can get over to Brooklyn, I actually think the restaurants are better generally. And probably better price as well. But there's some, great there's a place called Lucali in Cobble Hill.
I've heard about it. Yeah,
amazing. And just loads of other places. But yeah, it's a great city for.
Yeah,
I'm always trying new places as well. I'm out a lot. I always say it's for work and I'm networking, but I just like being out and about. So
love it.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really helpful. I'm gonna ask more of my guests that, because I feel like it's nice to have, people who live here who get the perspective, because we're all asked like, where should I go when I come to New York? So it's nice to have like a few pointers and different perspectives. But I love that, like staying out of, like trying to get out of Manhattan a little bit is great. Like in Brooklyn is super cool. So Andrew, thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure to have you as a guest on Navigate New York.
No, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.